Good afternoon. Welcome to our April 1st, Monday, April 1st, 2024 Madison County School Board meeting. Welcome once again. If you would like to address the board, we have a sign-in sheet to the back. I have it up here, and if anyone else would like to address it, would you please let us know? Okay, well, thank you. Now, we'll stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have our sign-in sheet here. Mr. Kidd, and I don't recognize the last name of the other person, Mr. Josh, you're already going to present to us unless you need to say something different. Okay, we have Mrs. Jamie Andrews.
Good evening. I was just curious, I know at the February 5th meeting, the sign-up sheet went around for committees and such as we look to not this coming school year, but the following. And I just didn't know if there was a timeline as far as what we can expect for updates from those committees. And if it's not going to be addressed at board meetings, if there's a place that we'll be able to look to keep up with what's going on.
If you would get with the superintendent, and the superintendent had Miss Becky, Miss Bishop, they're in charge of that. So
Okay.
you can get with them and get that information from them.
Okay,
And they
thank
would
you so
give it
much.
to you.
Thank you.
Whatever information. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Bishop. We're going right into our agenda. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? We do have one, and it's going to be board members 5.5A. And that is going to be, we're going to vote on the due date for the removal of non-conforming signs. Okay. Okay. Now, we're going right back to the presentation by the Boys and Girls Club. Mr. Kevin Kidd, 1.2.
All right, and
Thank
good
you.
morning, everyone.
Good afternoon, and how are you?
Hey, I'm paying attention. So many people just say good morning. I'm setting my timer because I promise.
Well, it can be morning to you. We can have you present until the afternoon.
You know what? Let's go ahead on now.
Let's come on.
Don't
Go
threaten me with a good time. But I'll be brief. First of all, let me say thank you. I had a chance to not only meet with several of my colleagues across the state, but I also met with the superintendent over at Calhoun County as we are expanding our operations. And I heard y'all been saying good things about Tabula Rasa.
Mr.
And what
Taylor.
I tell people is, yes, Mr. Taylor. And what I tell people is, all my colleagues around the state wish they had the relationships with the school boards that we have. And that's a testament to you all. But to give you an update on Boys and Girls Club, I want to talk about what we do, how many we serve, the impacts, and just give y'all some program highlights, and then I'll sit down. And I promise it'll be as close to 3 minutes as possible.
Thank you.
All right. We have 5 core areas, which include fitness and play, STEM, academic enrichment, workforce development, and personal enrichment. This past year, we have served over 300 youth in our schools, with 65 of those. Well, I'm not going to share these numbers because I didn't edit them, but basically, our highest numbers are at Pinetta, second highest are at Madison Central, Lee, and then Greenville. Last summer, we served 131 youth at the Central School, and we have gotten rave reviews from that program. In terms of outcomes, last school year, 32% of the students at Madison Central School showed improvements in math, 35% at Lee, 41% at Pinetta, and 36% at Greenville. In English, Madison Central, 21% showed improvement. Lee, 28. Pinetta, 25. Greenville, 34. And in science, at the Central School, 20%. Lee, 25%. Pinetta, 20%. Greenville, 33%. And I don't bring that up to claim that Boys and Girls Club is solely responsible for that. I bring it up to show that we're right here in the trenches with you and our parents and our community, trying to make it better for our kids. The last two things I want to bring up to you are the resources that we brought in. Through our partnership, we've gotten money from Ross, Murphy USA, and the Comcast Foundation. Those dollars go for all the fun stuff that all these restricted dollars in my grants won't pay for. And I'm happy to say not a dime of that goes to my salary. It makes me very happy when I bring in money that doesn't have to pay for me and Josh Manis, and it goes directly to the kids. The last thing is I want to talk to you about 3 programs that we did here in Madison.
Excuse me, and Mr. Kidd, if you
Yeah.
need 2 more minutes, you can have it.
Okay, thank you. My time went off, but I'm almost there.
You can have as long as you want to.
Well, thank you. I
Not,
appreciate
but not
it.
no more than 10 minutes.
Well, thank you. As I hasten to a close, we had our Fast and Furious drone program, where our kids learned to construct, disassemble, and fly drones all around your schools. It was amazing to see, and I'm kind of proud of that because my son runs the program. I'm sorry that
Okay.
we slide that in there. We had a 3D printing program where we taught kids how to make their own designs, how to load it up. We taught them how to make t-shirts on the Cricut machines. And then the last one, which I'm really proud of, we had a program called Art Kids, right? And Art Kids is where we teach kids how to express themselves using music, language, their writing skills. They make music videos and all this. And one of the best productions we had was Madison County School District's own Brian Cornegay came out and did science experiments with our kids and showed them goats and all that good stuff. And I will make sure you all get a copy of that video to watch, all right? Any questions?
It sounds wonderful. Now, it sounds like enrichment to me, is it?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. So most of the activities are geared toward enrichment, which is wonderful. I can't say anything against it. So
Well,
I thank you for what you're doing.
There was a time where Boys and Girls Club was just swim and gym, but that was in my heyday. They decided we wanted to go with education back in the late 90s, and I argued a little bit, but now I see the wisdom in it.
Okay. Thank you.
One thing, when you do your exhibition program, can you invite the board members?
Of course. I'd love to take
Okay.
y'all on a tour of our programs one day.
A cruise?
Well, if we can do that, yes. Where do you want to go, the Bahamas? But no, I would really
That's
like
against
to give
policy
y'all
and
a tour
procedure.
of our programs.
It's more than $50.
All right, hey, we good over
So
there?
that
I
is
read
a
my
no.
ethics book.
Yeah, no
Better
on
say
cruise.
no.
But one of the things I'm proud of is in 2023, we really put the emphasis on improving the quality of our programs. I was not happy. Can I just be honest with
Be
y'all a
honest.
second? Because I walked into one of my programs here in Madison County,
And they were
and I
pretty.
saw 12 and 13-year-olds doing coloring sheets.
No.
And I almost lost my mind, right?
All right.
But to my staff's credit, they heard my concerns. They rallied, and we have just been lighting the world on fire with our curriculum. I challenge each of you to go to our Facebook page at Boys and Girls Club of Tabula Rasa, where we update daily on the great things your kids are doing. Any other questions? Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. Now we will go to 2.2, adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
It is been moved by Mrs. Gibson, second by Mr. Carroll, that we adopt the agenda
With the amendment of.
with the, thank you,
Yeah.
with the amendment of 5.5A, due date for removal of non-conforming signs. Any questions? All in favor of, show your hands, please. 5-0, Mrs. Bishop. Okay, we've done public comment. Okay, and the consent agenda. Items 4.1 minutes, 4.2 internet and WAN contract, Mr. Isaac Juan. Okay, any questions about that?
The 4.2 is, that was the contract I talked with you each individual about, basically about the E-rate. That was the bottom line of that.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda items.
I second it.
It has been moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. K.
Can I
Miss,
say one thing?
Yes, sir.
On the last contract, I do want to make sure that y'all see, because normally our contracts say that we can terminate with 30 days' notice and all that. And this one does say that, but if you look at, in addendum C, which is the terms, and this is specifically 2.2 D, it says that we can cancel for with cause or without cause, which is good. But then in E, it says there's an early termination charge if you cancel without cause. And so and you'll see that it's 100% for months 1 through 12, it's 100% of what would be incurred for those months, 50% of months 13 through 24, and then 35% of months 25 through the end, which is a 3-year term, and then 100% of any unpaid installation fees. So you can enter a new contract that says that, but I just wanted to point that out because normally our contracts don't say that.
And thank you, Mr. Reeves, because I had that pulled from the last agenda because I knew it was something, that you, and the other previous attorney did not know.
Right.
And I was waiting to hear from that, but I see it has been put back under consent. So what are we going to do about that?
the one that we put on the consent is not the one that you pulled at the last meeting.
Okay, but he
Okay.
has some problems and
Okay.
concerns with this one. So how are we going to rectify that, Mr. Isaac, and the superintendent?
It's a 3-year contract, just
Yeah.
like all of our internet WAN contracts normally
There's no getting
are.
around.
But-
Service providers, you're gonna pay 3 times as more if you want to get out of it for no cost. That's just the reality.
So the concerns that you have,
It's an economic decision for you all to decide, because I think Isaac's right. I mean, you could probably get them to say, you can get out for any and no reason, but now they're gonna charge you more. If you lock yourself in for 3 years, they'll charge you less, you know.
In addition, there is the standard non-appropriations clause, so if the money's not appropriated, we get out of the contract without any penalties.
okay. All in favor of the consent agenda? 5-0, Mrs. Bishop. Thank you. Items for individual consideration, 5.1 personnel changes and volunteers, Mr. Killingsworth.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This evening, I have 3 names under either resignation or retirement, 2 of which are at high school, 1 at Pinetta. All 3 of those, as far as effective date, should be 6/30/24. That is for those 3. We have 3 names for our after-school tutoring program. That's over at Greenville, and that's grant funded. It's Ms. Danzy, Ms. Hopkins. And then we have substitute positions, Ms. West and Ms. Washington and Mr. Scott for sub-bus driver. And then we have basically 2 sets of volunteer lists. You have one that first one has 30 names on it. It has the school site as to which school they're wishing to volunteer, and then in parentheses it has what they will be doing at that particular school site. And then the last of those, which is 22 names, that is solely at Central School, and it follows the same format with the name, the school, of course, and then the event that they will help with. Those are the names that I have before y'all tonight that I'm asking for your approval.
May I say something before that?
Yes,
On a
ma'am.
couple of these on that volunteer list, they are asking for overnight field trip, overnight field trips will have to be fingerprinted.
Correct.
And so if but we have not approved any overnight trips.
Yes.
So do these people know that they have to be fingerprinted?
If we approve an overnight trip, they will know.
Okay, well, shouldn't they know now because they have signed up for this? So we can just let them know now, the conditions of that.
We will,
We will.
but we don't,
If
we're
you
not doing overnight
if you
trips.
approve, yes, we will contact them starting tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Board?
I move to approve the personnel changes and volunteers.
I second.
It is been moved by Mrs. Gibson, second by Mrs. Thompson, that we approve the personnel changes and volunteers. Any other questions? We'll take the vote. All in favor of, please show your hands. Ms. Bishop, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.2, request for extra hours. Mr. Travis Jones.
Madam Chair, we are requesting for extra hours for another person to assist with the adult ed program. Our enrollment has grown, and so we would need someone to assist Ms. Sharon Fletcher White Rossi with that. And this will be funded through the adult education grant. It will not come out of general fund.
All right. Questions by the board? Discussion? There be none?
I move to approve the extra hours.
I second.
It's been moved by Mr. Carroll, second by Mrs. Knight, that we approve the extra hours for the adult ed. All in favor, please show your hand. Ms. Bishop, 5-0. 5.3, purchase of vans. Ms. Rose, Ray Knight.
Good evening. There are two actually, we have asked the Title I roll forward amendment be amended so that we can purchase a van out of that to help transport some of the students back and forth, especially from the foster program and the other programs that we have. It is pending. That is asking for your approval. If the Department of Education approves it as part of roll forward, it would be covered by the federal grant. The other one is from the ARP homeless, which is a separate piece of ARP. And it's the same thing. We had a conference call with the homeless section up at the department, and they suggested that some of the money could be used for a van for homeless. Once the grant is over, then the van becomes part of the other federal programs. So that program is going to go out in September of 2024. So it would then be absorbed into the two. Both of them being paid by federal, both of them in pending status right now as amendments. So what I'm asking for is, if the department approves the amendments for both of those, can we move forward with the purchase of those two vehicles?
I have a question. Were these the only bids we got on these vans?
I'm sorry.
Is this the only bid we got for these vans? Was just
That's
one
the only-
dealership?
That's the only one we have right now. We're waiting for the amendment to come through. That's the same bid that we had when we purchased the other vans that we bought just recently. So we went to that same vendor and asked them if that bid was still good. So that's there. We're approximately thinking that it's going to be around the 45,000 mark. As soon as we know, we can get the multiple bids. But that was the best bid that we've gotten so far.
Does that satisfy you, Mrs. Thompson?
So you are going to get some other bids? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions and discussion?
So the 2023 and the 2024, it was the same price, huh?
Yes, yes.
And is there a reason we're looking at that specific kind of van, or is that just?
Well, we have a lot of the Traverses, the SUVs, but we're getting a lot of requests from the sports agents or sports organizations to transport a bunch of children down to Orlando.
Okay.
It's easier for them to get in vans than it is to get in SUVs when they're trying to transport.
Right.
So that's the reason we selected that type of van.
Okay.
When we went out for the bids for the vans before, the Pacifica was the highest rated with the least price of the other vans that we looked at.
So like
We looked
high
at
safety
Toyota
rating?
and- Yes, safety rating and everything. So that's why we selected them the last time. So we'll look at those same things, and transportation will look at those same things when we do actually get approval for an amendment.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the van quote presented based on grant funding,
Contingent on grant.
contingent on grant funding.
I'll second.
Say it out loud.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. Carroll, that we, what has been presented to us about the van purchase contingency on what?
Grant funding.
Grant funding.
Thank you.
All in favor? 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Rose. 5.4 field trips. Superintendent Joseph.
Madam Chair, I'm presenting the following field trips to you. The 7th grade class at Central School wants to go to Orlando Science Center. That will be paid for out of the UNICEF grant. The high school band is asking to go to ABAC, and that's paid out of their band funds. The Least Safety Patrol to Thunder Alley to go bowling, and that's paid for out of their school fund. And the high school students to Donald Tuckett Civic Center, and that's paid out of their Abbott program they're using. But if you notice, we're not using general, we're trying to preserve as general funds as much as possible.
I move to approve the field trips.
A second?
It has been moved by Mrs. Gibson, second by Mrs. Knight, that we approve the field trips. Any discussion, questions? There be none, all in favor, please show your hands. 5-0, Ms. Bishop. 5.5, permission to advertise revisions to policies. Superintendent Joseph.
Okay, we just finished discussing the policy about advertising, and I think we have made we're gonna use the policy, the draft policy that Mr. Reeves presented with the addendum that church would be recognized, we could recognize churches.
The policy that we approved from the workshop.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm asking you to,
9700.01 and 5722.
So Mr. Reeves you did list all those things?
Yes, ma'am. It is 9700 and 9700.01.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So all those that were just spoken, you have those
Yes,
that
ma'am.
to add?
Do you
Okay.
have to advertise the change in 5722, even though it's minor?
I don't think so, but let me look at that, because what it does is it says you have to
It says
advertise
to
in
refer
compliance.
to that policy,
Right.
but if we don't advertise that, I don't want that to be a loophole, that's all I'm saying.
It's not a loophole, but let me look at it, but I don't think we need to.
in the 5722, it referenced that 9700.01, and that's the one change.
Right,
And so it
but
will
since we're making a
reference the
change
changes.
to that policy to reference the new one, I just want to make sure if it has to be advertised as well, that it gets advertised so that we don't find ourselves in a predicament where we didn't advertise something that pertains to referring to a policy that we're trying to withhold.
And we can move forward instead of going back advertising.
Madam Chair, I move to advertise the policy changes as discussed in the workshop.
I second it.
It has been moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. Carroll, that we approve the advertisements that has been in the workshop that we had, and it's permission to advertise revisions to the policy. Okay.
So we advertised for 28 days, am I correct?
Let me carry this motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All in favor of 5-0, Mrs. Bishop. Now, you had a question, please?
Okay, so this will be back on the agenda, the first meeting in May.
Maybe, you got to see where those dates fall.
Okay.
Because you can't get it
Can't get it in.
advertised until maybe Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
So you may not have 28 days between Friday.
So
Okay.
whenever
So-
the time has expired is
That's
when we
right.
get it
Okay.
on there.
Okay.
Okay. 5.6, boys and
5.5A.
5.5A.
5.5A, due date for removal of non-conforming signs.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to
Approve. 'Cause it's been-
approve a date to remove the non-conforming signs based on our new policy or our current policy for the end of the school year, which the last day of school is dated 5/24/24.
5/24/24.
May
Thank you.
24th.
And also, I think you were saying that, that the signs that are presently down can go back up,
Correct.
provided they've already been paid for.
Correct. There is no, the window for advertising has already been closed. So if they have already purchased and paid for a sign, they can be placed back up on the fences or wherever they are for the remainder of the season and need to be removed by the last day of school, which is 5/24.
Does that mean those signs even never hit the fence?
If they were paid for.
If they were
and-
paid for.
Yes,
Before the close of the deadline.
yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We can further discuss it.
I second.
Okay. It has been moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mrs. Thompson, that we approve a due date for removal of non-conforming signs, and that date will be, the end date would be May 24th of 2024. Now, any other discussions or questions concerning it? Well, if there be none, we'll take the vote.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor? 5-0, Ms. Bishop. Okay. Now, here we are, 5.6, Boys and Girls Club Summer Agreement. Superintendent Joseph.
Okay, Madam Chair, the Boys and Girls Club normally hosts a summer program at our schools during the summer, and they're asking to be able to use the facilities at Madison County Central only to host their summer program. And their summer program will run from June 10th through July 25th, 2023.
Yeah, there's a typo, because it's June 2024.
That's 24, I'm sorry, I changed one place, I didn't change the other.
Yeah.
What's that, sir, ma'am?
So that, where on
July.
on the bottom of the second paragraph, it says operation will begin June 10, 2024, which I think is correct. But then it says, and then July 25, 2023. So that 2023 ought to be
Should be
2024.
24.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the Boys and Girls Club MOU with the adjustment of the correction of the 2024 date.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mrs. Carroll, that we approve the agreement with the Boys and Girls Club, and we are going to correct the date from June 10th, 2024 through
23.
July,
to
through
20.
July 25th, 2024, because it was 23? Was it
Right.
July?
Change it
Mhm.
from 23 to 24.
So we're changing the July date from
That's right.
23 to 24,
Yes,
and all with those corrections,
yes, ma'am.
All in favor of? 5-0, Ms. Bishop. 5.7, Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses Report, Mr. Tim Gann.
Okay, Mr. Gann is not here, and I'm going to be presenting to him. And the thing that he said about the fish report is basically the same in what Ms. Bishop should have posted for you, is that the school capacity usage report, that's the sheet that you should have. But the fish report is a Florida inventory of schoolhouses. It's looking at the total space, the type of classroom, permanent facilities, relocatable facilities, and age for facilities. It's just a survey of our facilities. Do we have any questions about that? And we have not changed anything. Our facilities are exactly the same as they were last year.
They need to put it in a format where you can see it.
Go ahead, what did you say, Mr. Carroll?
I said we need to have it in a format where we can see it, because
Okay.
on your thing, you turn it this way and it turns up there.
Sideways.
You can't read it, you have to read sideways. I had to stand on my head.
Agreed.
Well, if you need a hard copy, let Ms. Bishop know, but it is 168 pages.
I know, I don't wanna kill no more trees, but I'm pretty sure all the technology in the world, you fix that.
Okay, board members.
Okay, I move to approve the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouse Report. Fish.
I second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Gibson, second by Mrs. Knight, that we approve the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses report. There be any other discussions or questions? If none, we'll take the vote. All in favor of? 5-0, Ms. Bishop. Okay, 5.8, Microsoft licensing quote. Mr. Isaac.
This is our yearly Microsoft Volume License quote licensing purchase that we do. It's based on our staff FTE, it's a formula they have, and then it covers all of our computers and Office, Microsoft Office access, email, all that kind of stuff.
Any questions for Mr. Isaac? You want to tell us anything else? Okay, thank you.
Has it gone up or has it gone down or?
It's about the same cost. I mean, it's gone up maybe 3%,
Yeah.
something like that. It's about 2 to 3% a year.
I was gonna say, not gone down, we know that.
No, no, it doesn't go down.
Nothing goes down.
Board members?
I move to approve the Microsoft licensing quote.
I'll second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Gibson, second by Mr. Carroll, that we approve the Microsoft licensing quote. No questions? All in favor of? 5-0, Ms. Bishop. Thank you. We're going right into other items of interest. 6.1, superintendent's items.
Okay, for the superintendent items, I do not have a end-of-year calendar. I'm still in the process of working on that. But upcoming soon, Farm Day, that's with the first graders will be April 5th. Ecology Day with the third graders will be April 12th. And Ag Day with the fourth graders will be April 19th. I'm going to let Mr. Killsworth come forth because we've been having some concern about our teacher work calendar. And one thing I need to apologize. The storm came, we were out a lot of days, and we have not been updating the information online. But we are correcting the number of days, and he's going to share that information with you. But you are, one of your board members called me, we are correct. We did have the wrong information posted.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
One thing that we may need to try to keep in mind is in August and September is when the hurricane came. So that, we had some storm days there. Matter of fact, 30th, 31st of August and up through the 6th in September. Okay. Now, y'all ended up giving grace for 3 days for the actual days they had issued. The next day that we actually had an issue, and this is, we'll call this Storm B, if you want to call it that, was in January. It was January the 9th, okay? From that day, we did not have school. That day was the day we were supposed to have school. Everyone should have been there like any normal school day, okay? Well, we weren't able to have it that day, so we had to bump it, for lack of better words, to another day. So, remember I came before y'all earlier in reference to the storm day basically, that we were not able to come on the 9th and that we would need to make that day up on February the 19th. Okay, so then basically, the day we were supposed to do on the 9th, we moved it to the 19th, all right? And everybody came. All right, part of the, I guess, misunderstanding or not looking at that part is February 19th was a day that 10 and 11 and 12-month employees were to work. Okay? So we had to take that day, we'll call it in-service day for argument's sake, and unfortunately, we were limited to basically spring break sometime during that time, or unfortunately, Good Friday to make that day up, okay? So basically, it fell, we made it up on that Friday, which was Good Friday. No, I don't want to work that day up, okay? But that's what it was. So that initial day, basically on the 9th of January, trickled the other two. So on the sheet that you have with the little calendar, it shows you that in August, they worked 20 days. In September, 17. October, 22. November, 17. December, 11. January, 19. February, 21. March, 16. April and May, 22. Basically, when you add that up, we had 187 days plus the 3 days that y'all had grace because of the storm at the beginning of the school year, and their 6 holidays works out to 196 days. The teacher contract, which is basically a 10-month contract, is 196 days.
And you have a copy of the, out of the contract of how many days that teachers or 10-month people are obligated to work?
So we were just trying to keep it in accordance with what the contract says, and trying to, I mean, unfortunately, if you have a day that you're supposed to work and you don't work, then somewhere down the road, you gotta pay the piper and you gotta make it up. Unfortunately, that's where that was. Now, like I said, that was, remember when I came to y'all and kind of told you the trickle effect, that was part of that. I also had spoke with the union to make sure they were in agreement. I also sent that same email out, which y'all are all aware, because when I send it district-wide, y'all get it as well. So, and I tried, and I actually read from what I had sent out stating why the trickle effect. I mean, trust me, I'm not going to try to roll more days up than what they're supposed to, because then I got other issues I got to deal with. But I mean, it is 196. That's counting the 3 days that you gave them, so it's really 193. So.
But they get them 6 paid holidays as part of the 96, 196.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So they have 6 paid holidays.
Yes, sir.
Right. So my question was, I understand what you're saying.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
remember you coming before us. However, I do not see and do not recall you coming back to us to change the date to the March 29th. And again, I could be mistaken. I've looked at the different agendas from January the 12th, when your email was sent, to present. And I don't see anything on any of our agendas between then and now to adjust the MOU. Because the
ma'am.
original MOU was to make up the 2 hurricane days. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to understand. Because,
The hurricane days were for y'all to give them off,
right, but
so
we
to speak.
didn't.
So you changed their working condition. However, on January 16th, in that board meeting, you have item 4.9, revision to calendar, that would have covered what kind of where we're talking about. And probably, to be honest with you, probably what happened, we got kind of glazed over because the first part, we were saying, we're having to do this day for this day. And then when I said the other, it probably was, okay.
And that's,
And then when it came out, you're like, wait a minute.
But that was when we
that's
switched
Good
the night for the
Friday.
19th,
So it was that
correct?
revision. You
But-
did bring it to us, the revision to the
Well,
calendar.
and
But that was
just
the
trying
9th to the
to acknowledge
19th.
y'all, we weren't trying to change days, we weren't trying to add days.
Exactly.
But we're trying to stay within the conformity of what your contract was.
But the
Yes,
email
ma'am.
you sent was January 12th. The meeting
Yes, ma'am.
followed
Yes,
the
ma'am.
email. And so I didn't see anything on that agenda, and that's what I'm trying to understand. Specifically stating that the employees would work March 29th, because just me personally, I just feel like I would remember that's Good Friday. I would maybe say, can we explore other dates? This is Good Friday. A lot of people observe Good Friday. And so that's where I'm trying to understand. This email was sent prior to that meeting.
Yes,
To
ma'am.
inform them they were gonna work, but it had not been brought before the
And
board yet.
then from the time we were short, we sent it out after talking with them and then coming to let y'all know kind of what
But
we're
should
doing.
that
'Cause
have
we
been
didn't
voted
change-
on?
We didn't change the working conditions. We just
But it was the
traded-
date, was to change the date, correct?
Correct, we had no choice.
But
because we
should that
didn't
have
go
been
sooner.
brought to the board to be voted on?
Yeah, I think, look, mistakes happen, but yeah, if you've got an MOU that the unions agreed to, sure, that should be brought back for the board to vote on, but, you got a lot of jumble here with a hurricane and everything else. And I don't know what other option y'all would have had. But yes,
Would have
in a
been to take
perfect
a
world.
day from
The
spring
union
break.
was satisfied with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they weren't thrilled,
Because
but they
I
understood.
remember something to that effect, the changes and whatever.
Either we
Yes,
take a day from spring break,
Yeah.
or I take that date.
But yes, the MOU should have been
So-
brought back to the board before the official decision.
When did the union agree to changing Good Friday as the date? Like, when did that correspondence happen? Like, what was the date? Because I think my issue with it is for the teachers to find out, like, right before.
Let me see if I got it.
He just sent out 3
It would have been
emails in
prior
reference to that.
to
They
when I
found
sent
out
that
more than
email
that
out.
week before.
It was prior to the January 12th, I can promise you that.
Okay.
Miss Becky,
And
'Cause, I mean,
again,
I'm not gonna,
hold on 1 minute, Miss Becky,
I'm sorry.
Okay,
please.
on the January 16th agenda, well, if you look at the agenda item, the calendar is attached, and in the public comment, it says, makeup days will be as follows, all employees and students will report on President's Day, February 19th. Those employees who are already scheduled to work on February 19th will make up the day on March 29th, 2024. Good Friday. Students, bus drivers, carriers, and lunchroom employees will not have to report on March 29th.
Okay.
I remember
and that is
Mhm.
in the
I
calendar.
remember that.
sheets.
January the 16th.
Thank you, Miss Bishop.
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better,
Yeah.
just because like that was my big hiccup.
I
is like-
remember that, though.
What threw me off was the 19th was a holiday, and I didn't realize until I seen this. I mean, I seen it the other day when somebody sent it, but all of them jokers were supposed to work anyway, but the bus drivers and the parents, and on the 19th.
Well, and I will say, we are working to reduce the confusion because of the fact, the calendar that you see here, that is predominantly a student calendar. This what you see here, now unfortunately yours isn't color, but basically that one, that's an employee calendar. That's based on, are we 12-month, 11, 10-month teacher, 191 day, or 186, depending on which one it is, what days you have on and have off. We have to start with the student calendar and then work the other ones in there. That's why this is the problem why we had to come to y'all earlier saying, hey, could we reduce the 12-month calendar from 248 to 246? Because we're running out of that.
Right. Remember that.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
remembered.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Killenzer, for what you do each and every day, and appreciate you getting with the union, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other superintendent?
Yes, ma'am.
items? Okay.
I'm sorry, I got worried tonight. One other thing that the school recognition funds were paid out last week. And we were paid out according to the proposal, and I think each of you, we sent that. Now, for the school recognition funds, that is for a school that goes up a letter grade or either maintain an A. That's the purpose of that school recognition fund. Now, the distribution of that fund is controlled by the faculty, the support people, as well as the SAC. They vote on it, they present a plan to us. The district has nothing to do with how they vote on it. We are charged with enforcing how they vote on it. And what they vote on and what they write, that's what we do, not what they mean. Okay, because they meant to say a lot, but if they didn't write it down, we have to pass it out according to what's written down. And I think I shared that with each of you.
Okay.
I have an issue with that. I feel like when they write it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you say they wrote it out.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, why not, after they write it out, say, well, now, let's take a look at this? You know, maybe give them some, they may have misinterpreted how they should write it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Because in my mind, when the school goes from a D to a B, there should be a bunch of recognition. I
What do
mean,
you mean a bunch of recognition? How do you define a bunch of recognition?
let's say they did a great job, for one thing.
Okay.
That would be one way of doing
But
it.
we're talking about the funds, aren't we?
And the funds, they
Okay.
deserve everything, every type of recognition they could get. But I've heard about this. I don't know all the nitty-gritty details, which I'd like to get with you, and you can explain to me further outside of the meeting. But I do have some problems with it. That's all I think I'd like to say
Okay.
right now.
All
Who
the funds go
specified,
to the
Ms.
school.
Joseph, let me
Well,
get
no,
that straight.
I
What Mrs.
realize
Bishop is
that.
asking, who specifies that? The school board and the superintendent has no control over that.
We have
do
nothing to do with that.
We have no control of it.
Okay, well, I think my concerns will come to you then. I'll talk to you about it. Okay, thank you.
Next thing, we've had a busy week. Something else is going on, and I don't know whether, and it was just really brought to light. I wonder what the Lee Library is, and,
Okay, I was gonna talk to you about this.
okay, I've left the agreement in front of you.
Okay.
Okay, that property that Lee Library sits on is owned by the school district, and at your place, you got a copy of the, lease agreement.
Long-term lease agreement.
Long-term, can you explain that to them?
Certainly. So, years ago, when the county was trying to, was getting grant funding to put together the Lee Library, they didn't have a place to put it. The school board had the real property that the Lee School sits on, and also that additional property where the library is. And so at that time, the school board and the county got together, and the school board leased that property to the county for $1 a year or something. And in a long-term lease, and I think it's a 30-year lease. And the county was able to take the money and build the Lee Library and operate the Lee Library. So that long-term lease provides that the county is allowed to use that property for library purposes. And so anything other than library purposes would need to be approved, I would assume, by both the school district, both the school board and the county commission, if you were going to do something other than library purposes. And I think library is pretty broad. I mean, there's lots of stuff now falling under library.
Well, I think what the issue that I was gonna bring up is that there is somebody advertising using that land to sell spaces for Flee Across Florida, and they are actually collecting money,
That's illegal.
Well, that's what.
and
brought
are
that to a
setting up an
head.
event on the
gave it?
property. This happened last year here in the city park, and the city got involved. And now it's taking place out on the property there.
Well, have you
in Lee.
investigated who gave them that permission? That's illegal.
That I was
That's
gonna
what-
bring it
That
up.
just came to my knowledge the other day, okay? And that's why you have a copy of this.
Okay, so that your issue is being addressed and investigated by the superintendent?
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
What I need to talk with you about, someone did request like we have facilities to use the property, but they understand they cannot, it's a flea market, they're gonna be selling something, okay? But they cannot rent, they cannot sub-rent it, and they
Okay.
cannot put any political signs out there.
Okay, it is being advertised as spaces are being sold for $30
Oh,
to vendors to be able to set up.
Uh,
And if you, and I will
Okay,
get with
I'll
you.
talk with you
Yes.
after.
you've given her all that information,
I
who's
will.
doing it? Okay.
Okay, but, to follow that, is it okay to, let one person use it if they buy insurance, because we're liable for anything, but with the knowledge that they cannot sublet any of that part?
Can I jump
Get
in?
me on that.
When is the event supposed to be?
April
It-
15th
yeah.
is that week, that 13th, 14th, that
Yeah,
weekend.
it's that weekend.
So we won't have another board meeting?
It's the weekend before the next board meeting.
Otherwise, I can put some signs up there say no usage.
My advice would be that if someone wants to use that property, they need to bring a proposal to the board.
I agree.
Right.
And setting all that out.
I agree.
Without that proposal, you would probably say no. But that, again, that's up to the board. If you really wanted to do it, you could obviously hold a special meeting and consider a proposal and all of that sort of stuff.
Otherwise, I'll have, Ms. Again go there and rope it off.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
I think that is probably the safest thing to do for liability purposes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably need to call the county manager as well and make
And
sure
talk
that
with the
they're
people at-
included
okay.
in the loop.
Okay, but no, was brought to me last weekend, and I had to, because I didn't know about the lease. He had the lease, and I'm giving you a copy of the lease. Huh? We'll deal with that. Okay, also at your table, I had a board member to request hard copies of grants that are due to expire in June through September of 2024. And they're interested in balance remaining in the grants. So that big stack you have, these are the grants that's remaining from, that's ended in June through September 2024. It's by each grant you have, the first page is expenditures reports for each facility. And I've gone on and like MCHS 11, and I'll tell you which, if you see 11, what those facilities are. You've got the ARP grant, you've got the Title I Part A grant, you've got the Unified School Improvement Grant Part A, and you've got the additional UNICEF grant. So you've got all of that information. What I try to do when one of my board members request something, because all of us might not be thinking, one thing later, I just give everybody what they request.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me ask you a question about that, Mrs. Joseph.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just, now, this is the first I've looked at it, so I'm just asking a question. One of these grants, in other words, what I was asking for was the bottom line of how much was left in the balance of the grant. That is in here, right?
Okay, it's by each line item, because looking at the bottom line, what's left in the grant, but what category can you spend that money? Okay, Ms. Rainick, for example, let me,
That spreadsheet that you have is broken out by school. If you look at the column that says school, that's the facility.
Okay,
And each of the grants was, I put them in order of what the grant applied to for that school. So if you look at the first page, the majority of that first page
for the high
is
school.
the ARP grant that is at the high school.
okay.
In that grant, there are several items that you can do that were set aside in that grant for the high school. So you will see the original budget, or the revised budget on it, because it expanded over 2 years, so it's a revised budget. You will see what has been encumbered, so it's being planned to be used. The next item, the next column, FYTD, is the activity that's happened to date since July of 23-24, and what is left in that particular line item.
So board members, this was just placed on the table today. It is too thick for us to try to look at it now. When we get home, we can look at it, and then we have other questions and then we can bring it back. But you know, this placed on the table right now,
This
you're
was-
not gonna
This
understand.
was requested, and
This-
it's information
this morning.
only.
Yeah, that's
She's
exactly-
answering
yeah, we're not gonna vote
she's
on
answering a
this.
direct
Well, I know that,
question.
let me finish. I'm saying it's just placed on the table today. Now, I know I haven't had time to look at it and whatever, and whoever requested, all of us got a copy of it. So we will have time to look at it, and then we can ask, you know, these questions so you can understand it better. Because this,
I understand that, but the
General
person who
public.
requested it had a direct question
Well,
she's trying to get an
no,
answer to.
I agree with you, Ms. Hagan. It's good to be able to have time to look things over and to, you know, try to understand it. But it's also nice to get a little explanation from our finance officer in advance, so we can say, oh, I understand that a little better. That's all I was doing. was
Oh,
asking.
okay.
In other words, she's giving us a little preview of what's on the table. Thank you.
Ms. Joseph.
Okay, and the last thing I need to inform you, it is testing season, and so the best writing test will begin April 3rd. You've got the 4 through 10 taking that, but your K through 3 will be doing the star writing test.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. You sure there's nothing else? Mr. Turner?
No, ma'am, other than to remind you all, we have an expulsion hearing immediately after this meeting.
Oh, thank you. Board members?
I would like to thank Mr. Kidd for his presentation on the Boys and Girls Club tonight. Our superintendent has mentioned the calendar of events for April and May because there's already a conflict. We've talked about this before, because remember I had to miss one of our band concerts that I didn't like. And it does involve the band and a graduation date. I sent you the information earlier. So that's, I don't know if there's a master calendar, which I wish there were, if there isn't. Because maybe it's just a matter of communicating, you know, like these different, like for instance, the band's gonna have a spring concert, but we're also gonna have graduations. In other words,
We
the
have
date,
graduation on the 18th.
it's just, it was brought to my attention, yes, there's a conflict.
Well, talk with me, because I've had the band move the concert, the high school band move their concert once.
Well, maybe the parent didn't know about it anyway, so, but it's still nice to have a master
The principal
calendar.
has access to a master calendar. And I will-
Now, I don't just mean the principal, I mean the entire county, because parents have children in various schools, so they
I
want to...
coordinate all 5 of our schools. I coordinate all of our dates.
Okay, well,
Okay.
this parent was a little concerned about it, but
Um,
we'll talk
Talk
about
with me
that.
about that.
I will talk about that, okay. Thank you.
Okay, listen, I just want to say, on behalf of myself, and I'm not speaking for anybody else up here, that I just want to apologize to our staff for all of the confusion and everything that happened this week. I clearly, you know, miscommunications happen, and we have to own it when it does. I think the information should have been, you know, reiterated a little bit more in advance, even though it was approved in the prior meeting. There's some responsibility, you know, to the union on that as well, but at the end of the day, you know, we just need to be more effective communicators when it comes to, you know, things that are going on with our staff and our students. And, you know, it's an area of weakness that I acknowledge, and I'm committed to working on and improving. And I just want everybody to know that their thoughts and their voices have been heard. And just know that in your frustration, you know, you are greatly appreciated.
I would like to say that this past week, I had the privilege of attending several fun events. And one of those was the Beta Club induction at Madison Central. And this is the first time that there's been a Beta Club, I want to say since 2005, and if I'm wrong, correct me later. But we had 35 students inducted into the Beta Club, and we, the Central School, is a national Beta Club. They earned that distinction. Also enjoyed the Spring Fling at Madison Central, and I would not be afraid to say that there were probably close to 300 people there. It was huge. Great turnout, great community support. Also attending the award ceremony at Lee, a lot of amazing kids there that had awards from Mr. Manners for being, having manners in the classroom, to the awards that were given out for different academic things. And then I also was able to kind of get an insight to the mentoring program that Miss Christy Adams has started at Central, and I think that's going great. So just some fun things that went on last week, and I was just grateful to be able to be a part of it. Thank you, everybody that's here, that came to the meeting tonight, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week.
All right. They pretty much said it. But anyway, I enjoyed this past week. I went to several schools and done boards days and beta club, all that good stuff. We got some over our entire county. We have some tremendous kids, and they work very hard, and our staff works very hard with them. They had several programs in Greenville. Now, they didn't all happen there at the school, but some of them was uptown, and it was really good. So there's some good things happening for our kids, and hopefully that'll continue to go. Oh, and the Boys and Girls Club, that's some good stuff he reported on, and that's a vital part of our for our kids in our schools, in our towns. Thank you.
And I would like to thank everybody for everything that you've done. Thank you. Move for adjournment.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.